There are so many fights to make in the remainder of 2025 for the UFC in every weight class. So in today's video, I'm going to go through every single weight class and matchmake what I think should happen from championship fights, #1 contender fights, to the 10th ranked guys. Now, a lot of fights have already been announced, so I am going to take those fights and include them in this video. But I'm also putting a lot of my own thoughts into this. If you're new around here, make sure you hit that subscribe button, bell notification. Don't miss out on any new content. Buddy King MMA, we're coming at you strong. Pause. Anyways, starting off with the flyweight division. Obviously, we had some big moves at UFC 317. Pantoja is still the champion. He is going to face Joshua Van. That's basically confirmed at this point. Joshua Van beat Brandon Royval. That's a no-brainer. You got to make this happen. I wouldn't even mind this being a pay-per-view main event because it's such a banger of a fight. Then, it got really tricky. I was like, what should we do after that? Brandon Moreno doesn't have a fight, and he's highly ranked, but he can't just get a title shot. I think you give him maybe the Manel Cap matchup. Manel Cap, I was also kind of thinking you could put against Kai Kara-France. These matchups are kind of interchangeable here, but for this video, I did go Brandon Moreno versus Manel Cap, and the winner of this will probably get a title shot, especially if Joshua Van can win, because then I put the loser of the featured fight on UFC 317, Brandon Royval. I match made him against Kai Kara-France. Now, originally, I was thinking they could maybe make him versus, like, Kaya Sakura after he fights Tim Elliott if he wins. I think you rebook Royval versus Kai Kara-France. Their first fight was a banger. Moreno versus Cap, because I don't really know what else you do with Moreno. We also have Amir Albazi taking on Tatsuro Taira, which has already been confirmed, alongside Alex Perez, Steve Erceg. So just some movement at flyweight. Tim Elliott, Kaya Sakura, those have all been confirmed. The top of these rankings, though, it's kind of a cluster. It's a disaster. I don't know what you do exactly. I think any of these fights are interchangeable. The Moreno, Cap, Royval, Kai Kara-France disaster going on. But that's how I would do it, even though it's crazy we've still never seen Kai Kara-France versus Manel Cap, because that would be an absolute banger. Moving on to bantamweight, we obviously have the dominant champion, Merab Dvalishvili. He just beat Sean O'Malley, and they were trying to hype up Corey Sandhagen as the next fight. So that is exactly who I'm giving the title shot to, although I don't think he particularly deserves it. I wish this was maybe like Sandhagen versus Peter Yan too, but that's just not what's happening. It's going to be Merab versus Sandhagen. I guess it makes sense. There's no one left for Merab. Let's just book it. Then, as for Sean O'Malley, now, I think they're going to really want him to get a bounce-back win and fight down in the rankings. Obviously, there's also a lot of fighters who are already booked. With that being said, I don't think they're going to give him an Umar. I think Umar's too good. I think they don't want him right away again. Maybe you give him a Song Yadong matchup. I think that is a very winnable fight for O'Malley, but it also poses a lot of threat. So I also put the idea of a Henry Cejudo. Henry Cejudo is ranked very low, but these guys have history. They have beef. This fight would sell, and I think it would be an easy win for O'Malley. I don't think Cejudo would be able to take him down. His striking's not very good. He has no knockout threat against O'Malley. I think O'Malley versus Song Yadong makes more sense, but I could see them doing O'Malley versus Henry Cejudo. Then, for Umar, he probably should be fighting Peter Yan. Maybe he will. Peter Yan's fighting later this year, but if it's an easy win, we could see Umar versus Peter Yan. But for here, I put the idea of Davison Figueiredo or maybe Song Yadong. I think Umar needs to fight someone below in the rankings. He got the title shot very fast after beating Corey Sandhagen. He needs to prove himself a little bit more, fight some contenders before he gets back in that title conversation. I do think he will get there. I think he'll beat either one of these guys, Song Yadong or Davison Figueiredo. Then Peter Yan, he's already came out and said he's fighting Marcus McGee. Crazy matchmaking, but to be honest, this fight's going to be so good that I'm not that mad at it. Giving a lot of like O'Malley versus Yan vibes, where O'Malley got the #1 contenders fight out of nowhere. I don't think Marcus McGee's going to win, but I also think he's really good, and people are going to be put onto him. So that's going to be a banger. I think you rebook Marlon Chito Vera versus Mario Batista. Mario Batista just beat Patchy Mix. Very easily made Patchy Mix look like he's never fought before, so that was awesome. Okay, anyways. I think you rebook this fight. I think Mario Batista probably gets past Chito Vera, but Chito Vera could also put him down. It's going to be interesting to see that fight if it ever does actually happen. And then for the last fight, I chose Rob Font to take on Ayman Zahabi. Zahabi's coming off a very fun fight against Jose Aldo where he got the win. I think if Rob Font wins, he totally deserves to fly up the rankings, get someone ahead of him. He is getting old, so it's now or never kind of. But I think he has to get past Ayman Zahabi first. These are two old guys, and I think you just matchmake them now because they're like old prospects. I know Font's a veteran, but like Zahabi's like a prospect. See if he gets past him. Winner can start looking up in the ranking. Then for featherweight. Now, I'm making this before anything's been totally announced. They did say Movsar Evloev is fighting Aaron Pico. Why is Movsar not getting the title shot? So, people are saying, oh, Yair versus Diego. They announced Diego versus Gene Silva. But does that mean it's going to be Yair getting the title shot? No. No. Put him in the gulag. That is not happening. Yair does not deserve a title shot after beating Patricio, Slowbull, Chihuahua, Pitbull, whatever. I digress. Alexander Volkanovski, he can chill for a minute, and he can wait out the winner of Movsar versus Aaron Pico. I think it's going to be Movsar, but I think the winner of that totally deserves a title shot. If Aaron Pico comes in and beats Movsar, he deserves a title shot. Movsar already deserves it. Volkanovski versus Movsar. I also have Movsar versus Pico here right next to it. Also confirmed, Diego Lopez versus Gene Silva. Oh my god. I think if Gene Silva wins, you give him the title shot right after Movsar. Diego Lopez probably would need one more fight. Maybe you do Diego versus like the loser of the Movsar versus Pico fight, and then he could look back for a title shot. I also have down here Yair versus Diego Lopez. Now you're going to be like, that doesn't make sense. You already booked Diego Lopez. Yair is a crybaby. He sits out. He waits. He thinks he deserves a title shot. Punish him by giving him Diego Lopez. Win or lose against Gene Silva. I think you do Diego Lopez versus Yair Rodriguez. That fight has to happen. I don't know who else you give Yair. Yair's not good. Like, he does not deserve a title shot. I hate him. Anyways, Ryan Ortega versus Aljamain Sterling just got announced. That's a banger fight. Love this one. I low-key think Aljo could win this one. So, we'll see. And then, for the last fight I made Arnold Allen versus Lerone Murphy. I was going to do Arnold Allen versus Yair, but I don't think Yair's going to accept that, nor do I think anyone else really deserves like a Lerone Murphy. He should be fighting up in the rankings. He's going to get the Arnold Allen matchup, I imagine, and I think that would be a banger, and whoever wins that can really look to get a title elimination fight, so I like this one. Now at lightweight, we have so much to discuss because UFC 317. Obviously, our new champion, Ilia Topuria, we are undefeated. We are the greatest fighter of all time. He's going to fight the winner, in my opinion, of Arman Tsarukyan versus Paddy Pimblett. Obviously, they tried to build Paddy Pimblett versus Ilia already. It's not deserved. It's not going to happen. Even Dana White said, like, whoa, let's pump the brakes here. Arman missed weight, and that's why he pulled out a 311. We just found that out, too. Like, there's just so much. You have to do Arman versus Paddy. Now, I do know Justin Gaethje's also in the mix, but I think Arman versus Paddy's a bigger fight. I think it's a more important fight. I think it's one we care about more. Because I think if Gaethje fights Arman, he gets schooled. I think if Gaethje fights Paddy, he gets schooled. You got to do a fun fight for Gaethje. If he wants to sit out, he can retire. Who cares? We don't care, I promise. Arman versus Paddy. Winner fights Ilia for the belt. Then, I have the loser of the main event in UFC 317, Charles Oliveira. He's at a weird point in his career, as well as the guy I'm matching up with. And I think they're on very similar schedules. I mentioned this in my Fights to Make video. I think both these guys are kind of going to fight for legacy more so than titles right now. Just because the circumstances. Ilia's champion. He's already beat both these guys. I think win or lose to Dustin Poirier, since he's retiring, you do Charles versus Max, the rematch. They fought so long ago when Charles, like, grabbed his esophagus and was, like, dying. Charles versus Max. This would be an absolute banger. They're both older. Charles is old. Max is still kind of young, but they have so much experience. They're veterans. Winner of this is getting pushed. Like, they're still in the mix for the title shot. Loser is going to maybe have to, like, retire or fight way down in the rankings. I think you book this fight while they're still good. You know what I mean? This is a banger. I need to see this fight before Charles retires. So, then I think you rebook Justin Gaethje versus Dan Hooker. This is an absolute banger. This fight got scheduled, and then Dan Hooker pulled out with a broken hand. Justin Gaethje fought Fiziev on short notice, and then he thinks he deserves a title shot. Buddy, if that's the case, I deserve a title shot. I fight demons every day. I think Dan Hooker, Justin Gaethje is going to be an absolute banger, and the winner can get a title shot. I don't think anyone would be mad at that, right? There's so much action in lightweight, so much movement. I think Arman versus Paddy, the winner gets a title shot. I think Justin versus Dan Hooker, the winner gets a title shot. And then Max Charles, whoever wins that, can look to get a title elimination bout against one of the losers of those or something. Anyways, I digress. I think that's a banger. And I'm rooting for Dan Hooker because the way Gaethje's been handling this whole build-up. Then I rebooked Mateus Gamrot and Rafael Fiziev. The first time they fought, Fiziev, like, broke his leg really fast. And this fight was very competitive while it lasted. Gamrot was doing way better on the feet than I think anyone expected him to. I think this is a perfect time to make this fight. Gamrot's coming off his return. He put up a great fight against Justin Gaethje and lost. But then he came back and beat Ignacio Bahamondes very dominantly. Mateus Gamrot is coming off some wins against like Ludovic Klein. I know he lost to Dan Hooker in a very close fight, but I think you rebook this fight, this rematch, and it's going to be a banger. And for my final match at lightweight, originally I said Beneil Dariush versus Grant Dawson, and I still think that's on the table for sure. But what I actually do realize the UFC might do is Beneil Dariush versus Mauricio Huffy. Huffy called for this fight a while ago, and I do think they could make this like a fight night main event or a pay-per-view like opener. So I do think this fight's probably going to happen. If not, I still think the Grant Dawson fight makes a lot of sense and it's a banger. But they're going to give it to Huffy. They want to push him up the rankings as fast as they can, and I think he kills Dariush. Now for welterweight, also so much to talk about. Jack Della Maddalena is our champion. And I think he's going to, well, I know he's going to fight Islam Makhachev. Makhachev vacated his lightweight title, moved up. He's going to fight Jack Della Maddalena. I low-key feel like JDM can win that fight. But, I don't know. I love JDM. He's one of my favorite fighters on the roster right now. I like him more than Islam. I think he probably can beat Islam. I really do. But I'm at a point where if Islam wins, it might not be the worst thing because we need to see Ilya versus Islam. And if that takes Ilya moving up in weight and Jack being the sacrifice, maybe it's okay. Unless Islam beats both of them, then that would be kind of tragic. But that's the fight. That's going to happen. Then I think you capitalize on this beef. Kamaru Usman just beat Joaquin Buckley. I think you do Bilal Muhammad, the former champ, versus Kamaru Usman, the former champ. They're both old. They're both former champs. They have beef. They had like a podcast episode that's never getting released because they had so much beef in it. This is absolutely the fight to make. This would be a banger. I don't even know who would win. Probably Bilal if he grappled, but I don't know. I think that's a banger fight, and the winner can get a title shot. Like, that makes a lot of sense. There's so many title contenders and deserving title fights at welterweight, like this next one. Shavkat Rakhmonov, he's been out with an injury for quite some time. I think you have to make him earn that title shot again just because people have been so active at welterweight and done a lot. I think you do Sean Brady versus Shavkat. Sean Brady already deserves a title shot, low-key. But I think he would take this fight against Shavkat. I think this would be a banger. I don't even know who I'd lean. Probably. I don't know. I'm not gonna say until this fight gets actually made, if it does. I think this is a banger. This is also a #1 contenders fight. Needs to happen. I would love for this fight to happen. And then I booked Leon Edwards, who is the former champ. He's on a losing streak. He lost to Bilal. He lost to Sean Brady. I think you book him against the next up-and-comer, Michael Morales, who's also a striker. So Leon wouldn't have to worry about getting absolutely dominated on the ground like he did in his other 2 fights. This would be an all stand-up fight. Michael Morales is the next big thing. He just knocked out Gilbert Burns. It was a super fun fight. I think he's the real deal, and I think this would be a very fun like style matchup. So I think you do Leon versus Michael Morales, and if Leon loses, he's done for, bruv. He's done for, bruv. There's 18 fights losing in a row, you know? And then the one that you have to see, the Buck versus the Cuck. It has to happen. It has to happen. Now, my only concern is that Buckley has spoke on taking some time out because he's been so active, and I totally get it. I love Buckley. I think he should do that. I do think this is the fight I want him to come back to is against Ian Gary, but Ian Gary's also pretty active and very good. I think you could see Ian Gary in any of these roles, filling in for maybe the Usman fight if one of them pulls out, or fighting maybe Sean Brady if Shavkat's not ready in time, because Shavkat's injury I heard is pretty bad. You could see Sean Brady versus Ian Gary, #1 contenders fight. But the fight I want is Ian Gary versus Joaquin Buckley. Ian Gary wins, he probably should get a title shot as well. You could put him in line. Or if Buckley wins, he could fight one more fight after that and get the title shot, because he came back, he lost to Usman. I think he needs to put 2 or 3 more in a row and he can get that title shot. Then the last fight I wanted to do Colby Covington versus Kevin Holland, but I believe Kevin Holland just signed to fight Daniel Rodriguez. You're chopped, brother. Like, I know you want to fight as much as you can this year, but you could have just waited it out and got a better matchup. You're going to get a win over Daniel Rodriguez. But if you lose, all that work's gone. All of it. Anyways, I put Colby versus Gilbert Burns. This is the time to make the fight happen. When they were in their prime, we wanted this to happen. Now they're both old and washed, and I think you make this happen. Loser retires from the sport. I think Colby Covington would actually beat Gilbert Burns at this point. So that would be a fun fight. As for middleweight, we obviously have Dricus du Plessis taking on Khamzat Chimaev. That fight's already been announced and confirmed. I think Dricus low-key might win that one. Let's wait till my official predictions come out, because that one's going to need some research. And then also just confirmed recently, main event in, I believe it was Paris, I believe. Nasruddin Imavov is taking on Kyle Barajo. Whatever, I don't know how to say. Kyle Barajo. Sure. That's going to happen, and that's going to be a really good fight. Number one contender for sure. I think Nasruddin Imavov is going to get it done. See, this is what I'm talking about. Justin Gaethje over here sitting like, title shot retirement, bruh. Title shot retirement. I beat Rafael Fiziev. Imavov is on an absolute hot streak, and he just KO'd Adesanya, which we haven't really seen. And he's facing number 6 Kyle Barajo for a number one contenders fight. That is what we like to see. That is a fighter, okay? I think Imavov probably wins this, but I don't know. Barajo's last fight was what, like Jared Cannonier or something? He looked good, but I think Imavov's going to win. Then this was actually really tough, but I do ultimately think this is what they're going to go with. I think they're going to do the rematch between Sean Strickland and Israel Adesanya. Who else do you give these guys at this point in their careers? Because the rest of middleweight is booked out, and this is also like a legacy fight for both of them. I do think this fight would probably go about the same way the first one did. I think Sean Strickland would be able to outpoint him for 5 rounds. So I'm picking Sean Strickland if this fight gets booked. Both of these guys are at like a similar point in their careers, you know. They're losing to Dricus du Plessis. They're kind of on their way out, but they're still up at the top of the rankings. I think the winner of this can stay in that mix, and the loser is going to either like retire or fight way down in the rankings, just kind of for other prospects to get a name. That's a fun fight to make. Then we have Robert Whittaker taking on Reiner de Ritter. This has already been confirmed. I low-key think Reiner de Ritter might win, but I also don't know because he hasn't fought anyone that good yet. He's fought Kevin Holland, Gerald Meerschaert, and Bo Nickel, who's not good. Robert Whittaker's been in there with some beasts. He fought Khamzat, he fought Dricus, he's fought Adesanya. He's the former champ. This is going to be a good fight. I'm excited for this one. Also announced Jared Cannonier versus Michael Venom Page. This is a banger. Also a really interesting fight because I think style-wise it's going to be tough. Cannonier's very strong, got good grappling, he's powerful, he's good on the feet. MVP's the hardest striker to like face in the UFC. I think Cannonier's going to try to just wrestle him. But I low-key think MVP could win this one. But don't count out Cannonier. He's really good. I picked him to beat Gregory Rodriguez, and I was so proud that I did. Then also announced Roman Dolidze versus Anthony Hernandez. This is a pretty good fight. I think the winner of this definitely deserves to be like in that top 5 conversation. I think Anthony Hernandez is going to win. He just came off a win against Brendan Allen, where he didn't look nearly as good as I thought he would. But he's going to beat Roman Dolidze. I think he will. Roman Dolidze's not that good, so that's the fight to make. Then at light heavyweight, we have a lot of options here. This was actually really tough matchmaking. This might have been the hardest one. For the title fight, I rebooked. It's going to happen. The rematch, Magomed Ankalaev versus Alex Pereira 2. I think this fight's inevitable. Alex Pereira is a deserving rematch champion. Like, deserves that. They're going to do this. So, I don't know who I'd lean. Probably. God, I hate to say it, but I think Magomed's probably going to win that. I hope Alex wins. But if Magomed wins, there's a lot more fresh mashups. Why can't I talk? Fresh mashup. If Magomed wins, there's a lot more fresh matchups for him in the future, such as the winner of what I think should be the number 1 contender fight between Yuri Prohaska and Carlos Ulberg, the 35-year-old prospect Carlos Ulberg. I think Yuri would beat Carlos Ulberg. Ulberg fights like Israel Adesanya at light heavyweight. Boring. I think Prohaska would win. I do. And if he does, you could do Magomed versus Yuri if they both win, you know, if Magomed beats Pereira again. So, that's a banger. I was also tempted to do Yuri versus Khalil, but I think they're going to do Khalil versus Jan Blachowicz. I think this is a good fight. I think this is a way to get Blachowicz out of the sport. I don't think they want him at the top of light heavyweight anymore. I think he would retire if he lost this fight, and I do think he probably would lose this fight to Khalil. Khalil's looked really good lately, looks very technical. He absolutely dominated Jamal Hill, who I also made against Volkan Ozdemir. I think he needs to fight way down in the rankings. I think this is a winnable fight for him, but I also think Ozdemir could win, and Ozdemir's getting old, and he's also been on a decent little run, so if he wins, we could see Ozdemir getting like a title elimination kind of fight. Then I match-made Alexander Rakic, who if you beat him, you're kind of up next for a title shot, like you're in that conversation. I match-made him against Dominic Reyes, who I wanted to match-make against Jamal Hill, but I don't think they're going to do that. I think Jamal needs to fight even lower down in the rankings to kind of bounce back. I think it would be a dumb match for him to take. think Dominic Reyes is back. I think he's good, and I would really be rooting for him against Rakic if this fight happens. And then for the final fight at light heavyweight, I rebooked Nikita Krylov versus Azamat, the professional Mirzakhanov. I think Mirzakhanov would absolutely school him. Mirzakhanov's a beast. Krylov has looked weaker in his last couple of performances. He got knocked out by Reyes. I think this is the time to make this fight. And Mirzakhanov is honestly like a title threat kind of fighter, even though he doesn't look like it. Now for the last fun weight class, heavyweight. Our undisputed champion, Tom Aspinall, because John Jones ran off, literally after getting in a car crash with a woman in his car. Anyways, the other car must have been Tom Aspinall. That's what I'm saying. Aspinall is the undisputed champion. His first defense is going to happen, and it's going to be against Cyril Gane. It's inevitable. It's going to happen. Hate it, love it, whatever you want. It's okay, because Tom Aspinall knocks him out in 2 rounds. Less than 2 rounds. He knocks him out in the first round. So, that's the fight that's going to happen. Then I think the #1 contenders fight is going to be Alexander Volkov, who should be getting the title shot because he did beat Cyril Gane. Whatever. Volkov versus Jelton Almeida. Winner of that can be next in line for Tom Aspinall. Probably going to be Almeida. I think that's what the UFC would want. There's no hype between Aspinall and Volkov too. Aspinall versus Almeida would be kind of crazy. I think Aspinall beats everyone though. Then they announced, this is how chopped the heavyweight division is. Sergey Pavlovich versus Waldo Cortez Acosta. It's already been confirmed, so it's happening. If Waldo Cortez Acosta wins, Jesus Christ. Okay. Curtis Blades, he just beat Rizvan Kuniev. I think you book him against the winner of Derek Lewis and Taliesin Teixeira, which is coming up. They're on very similar schedules. There's history with Lewis beating Blades by like kind of a fluke KO in the past. If Taliesin Teixeira wins, he's kind of up next, and you could book this fight. You know, I think this fight would make a lot of sense. I like this one. Then I think you do Marcin Tybura versus the GOAT Shamil Gaziev. Yeah. Gaziev has put together a nice little win streak. Tybura stops all these prospects and stops all these people that should win. So, we'll see. Maybe Gaziev can get past him. It would be an interesting fight. We got to push Gaziev up these rankings. Imagine him being on your posters for a UFC event. Oh my god. Then, for the last fight here, I booked Sergey Spivak against Rizvan Kuniev. I think Kuniev proved he deserves to be in the top 15, top 10 range of heavyweight. Heavyweight's not entertaining. Not good. Put him against Spivak, you know, he did really well against Curtis Blades, so you could make this fight. I think he would beat Sergey Spivak. Spivak's not very good, and it would put him right in that like mix, which is where I think the UFC wants him because they signed him. And then, you know, we'll just discuss some of the women's fights to make. I think you do Weili Zhang versus oh god, Berna Jandiroba. Berna Jandiroba just beat that one chick. I know, Yan Jiaonan. And that's, now she's #1 contender. Unfortunately, she's going to be on a poster. Oh, God. Anyways. Then Valentina Shevchenko needs to fight Natalia Silva. And I actually think this would be a very fun fight. Natalia Silva just schooled Alexa Grasso. And Valentina's had tough fights against Grasso. So this would be a very interesting match. I think Shevchenko would just spam her grappling because Natalia Silva is very quick, very good on her feet, very fast, great striker. This would be a good fight, though. And then, obviously, Kayla Harrison versus Amanda Nunes. That's, like, the biggest fight to make right now. That's going to be a good one. I still don't even know who I'm picking in that. A lot of people are saying Amanda, but she's been gone for so long. I low-key feel like Kayla might win that. Then, inevitably, if they both win, even though I low-key feel like Natalia Silva might win, if she doesn't, you do Weili Zhang versus Valentina Shevchenko for a double title fight. Like, big deal. Biggest women's fight you can make. I wish they could just do that right now, but there is 2 deserving contenders in their weight classes. And then, just for like an honorable mention, I have a fatal 4-way if they ever decided, you know, just to do it. Between Alexa Grasso, Mackenzie Dern, Tracy Cortez, and Norma Dumont. I think it would be really fun to watch. Thanks for watching.